Right, Jody, the time has come for you to select your 1-2-11. This is your team, made up from the best players you have ever played with. Are you ready?
Yep.
What formation have we got?
It's like a 3 diamond 3.
Oh, it's that good. It's not even a number in the middle, it's a diamond. 3 diamond 3. I have never heard of that before. Is that just a 3-4-3, basically?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to get the best players on the pitch, not necessarily in the way that I would want my team to set up.
Oh, wait, go on, let's see what you got.
Lid off, yeah.
Lid off, yeah, good, good.
Right, in goal, I'm going to be going with Kudicini, who, for me, I thought he was the best goalie in the Premier League when I left Chelsea. And I remember after I left, the year after I left, Czech came in and I used to ring the lads going, what is happening? How is he better than Kudicini? And they was like, no, seriously, Czech is actually, we're surprised as well, but he is actually better. But for me, even for his height, he still commanded his box, but he was by far the best shot stopper I'd ever seen, and strangely enough, not really crazy either for a goalkeeper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Played for both of the finalists as well.
Yep, so Carlo in goal. Right side at the back, we're going to go with Marcel Desailly. You don't really need to say too much about him, do you? I think it speaks for itself. I've opted to play him at the back. Obviously, he had years at Milan dominating in midfield, but towards the end of the career, when he came to Chelsea, so maybe not his greatest years, but you could still see in the top games, when he needed to, he just went into 5th gear and absolutely. Funny enough, though, he was one of them players that never used to watch football that much, because before we went out to play Liverpool, we was in the tunnel and Luca had given a big speech about Emil, who at the time, I think it was by Christmas, had scored like loads of goals, and said, like, obviously Heskey this, he's physical, but blah blah blah, don't be too physical, he might go down every now and then, and blah blah. And then we got in the tunnel and he was obviously one of the first ones out, and he shouted at me, he was going, Jody, which one's Heskey? And I'm like, he's just moved to Liverpool for God knows how many million. He was probably one of the top goal scorers at that period of time, and he was asking me in the tunnel, could I? So I had to go and say hello to Emil in the tunnel, like, yeah, that one. Yeah, so, funny one. OK, in the centre at the back, going to go for Rio, who, for me, we played together at sort of like England youth teams, England under-21s and that, but known each other since we were kids, and he was an absolutely gifted footballer, going forward, unbelievable skills and everything. And all of a sudden, in the youth team, we used to play against each other in midfield, and then he got sent to the back, didn't he, when he'd come up against me a couple of times. But no, as far as like a gifted centre-half, he'd bring the ball out and was ever so cultured, and he actually, I thought it changed his game a bit at Man United as well. Maybe because he had to be world-class, which for me, I thought for sort of 6 or 7 years, I thought he was one of the best in the world.
When you played with him in the youth team and younger and everything, did you think that he'd go on and be probably one of the best centre-halves in world football?
Not early. I'm going back to sort of 14 years old.
Yeah, no, even like
he was always gifted, but he wasn't nowhere near his size.
Right.
So I always looked at him as like a midfielder or as an attacking midfielder, but you always thought, he's a top player. Like, he was always one of the best ones. But obviously, to see him go backwards and be world-class in the defence, I never saw that. But obviously, when you get to 2021, then he started developing. Left side at the back, John Terry. For me, one of the things that's underrated, I mean, everyone knows he's obviously one of the greatest centre-halves to play in the Premier League and one of Chelsea's greatest ever players. But one of the things that gets overlooked from him is how good he is on the ball. I think too many people go straight to, yes, he's brave, yes, he puts his head in where it hurts, and yes, he's a leader, great captain. But as far as passing and even in midfield, he can play and he sees things, and in training you see him on the ball, and obviously you don't take risks in matches, but in training you see him and he's still performing at the very highest level, and obviously the goals. How many goals he scored.
He's played every game this season, every Premier League game. And his contract's up at the end of the season. How's that working?
I don't know. I think that there's obviously a bit of a strategy at the club when you get to a certain age, but I'm sure that'll be sorted out. When you play,
it's got to be. He's top draw.
Obviously, as well as him.
Should still be playing for England as well.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I think we all know that. And in the holding midfield role, Glenn Hoddle. As I said, I was only privileged to play a couple of reserve games with him as a 16-year-old, and as I said, I'm sure you see it most, but every day in training, whenever he used to join in or when I used to watch from the sidelines, some of the things I'd see him do, I used to be gutted that I wasn't playing in or wasn't around him when he was sort of like at Spurs or when he was doing it at Monaco. It was just, for me, a genius, two-footed genius.
Definitely.
And then the ones I was saying earlier, where there was a little bit of a debate, I've gone for Hullet.
How good was this man?
Well, for me, he was obviously towards the end of his career as well, but he was one of them players where he never gave the ball away in training, ever, honestly. He was, whether the pitch was tight and you had to do like little keep balls in a circle, or whether it was big and then he'd use his physical prowess, he was unbelievable. And he was another one where you kind of looked at and gone, oh my God, how good must he have been? Sort of 10 years ago when he was playing at AC Milan. The range of passing he had as well, he was class. He could play with people under pressure, like trying to get him off the ball, and he'd still.
Is that like what the lads would be like? You know, like your mates at training, who everybody has their own little thing.
Yeah.
You know, after training, would you all sit there and go, "Cool, how good he must have been"?
Yeah, someday.
Special.
Yeah, someday. And as I said, I'm not kidding. When I'd probably be able to count on both hands how many times I see him give the ball away in training. He was unbelievable. He just wouldn't. If there wasn't a pass on, he'd just protect it and shield it and wait for someone to come available and then give. He never give the ball away.
Would he go mad if other players give the ball away though?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was the most demanding person ever. And to be fair, when he went forward in matches for Chelsea, he took a liberty sometimes getting back as well. He would walk back, but but because we weren't used to seeing that level of player at Stamford Bridge, I think the fans swallowed it. Yeah. And then in the left side of midfield, I've gone to Lamptey, and for me, I honestly think he's the greatest goal scoring midfielder of all time. I don't care what league or whatever. If you look at the goals that he's scored and the amount of assists he's got and all that, but not only that, he's done it with not shirking his defensive responsibilities. Tactically, he's excellent and a real leader. And as I said, he's never shirked his responsibilities defensively. So to be a centre midfielder and have Chelsea's highest goal scorer is just.
Did he constantly work on his game?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Till up to last year when I'd go over and see him at the end of training sessions. He knew what his body needed and he would do it all the time. We'd get the young lads over to speak to him because he's always doing finishing or he's doing box-to-box runs, and he's just a class act. And as I said, I think him and when you talk about Ronaldo and Messi are far away from everybody else at the minute. I think Lamps and JT are that's by far the two greatest to play.
Do you think he'll go on and manage?
Yeah. It'd be a waste if he didn't. Just behind the strikers, go for Gianfranco Zola. It goes without saying. I mean, he was so gifted. And another one who he used to say that he used to watch Maradona do his free kicks at Napoli and would study his technique and then try and emulate it. And he would always be like that with the younger lads at Chelsea as well. You'd see him doing his free kicks and you'd sometimes stay out just to watch him, but then if he see you watching, he'd go, well, why aren't you out here practising as well?
I played against him at Parma, when he was at Parma, and he had a free kick. I'm not joking, it was on the edge of the 18-yard, and I'd never seen it before. You see it a bit now, but he got it over the wall and onto the top of the net. And you just thought, how can you do that? How can you get it over the wall? Yeah. And that was before the balls were like they are now, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and he used to say that he used to have a different technique for how far away the ball was from the goal as well. Yeah. He would hit the ball differently, a different part of his foot, depending on how far away it was. So it would travel further before it would dip down. He was a genius.
Phenomenal player.
He's top drawer. Yeah. I'll go firstly out wide at the top. It's not exactly wide. We're talking definitely three strikers here. I'm going to go for Michael Owen. Played with him in the Youth World Cup. He was actually my junior at Lilleshall as well for a couple of years. Amazing finisher. And at a period, again, for 6 or 7 years, his pace just absolutely murdered defenders. And the way that he would maybe not be seen throughout games. I mean, it was play with him at England. Sometimes you wouldn't see him. And his link-up play is not the greatest, but you just kind of always knew that if we get a chance, it'll be him that gets it and he would stick it away. He was the coolest customer. He had so much confidence in his finishing ability that it was a shame that injuries, I think, slowed down how well he was actually doing.
Top finish.
He was class. And then in the centre, at the top, I've gone for Mark Hughes. For me,
best holder-upper ever.
well, that's exactly. It was a midfielder's dream. He'd smash a defender out of the way, control it, and then just wait for everyone to get up and support. He was a top player. Really quiet off the pitch, like in and around the training ground. But once and in training, he'd be awful as well. Like some days, I know there's a bit of a YouTube footage of him volleying that one in, but he's probably had 100. And we used to give him loads of stick about his shooting in training, and he'd just say, "Oh, I'll bring in a DVD tomorrow with all my goals. Don't worry, you'll see my finishing." And he was the strongest. As I said, back to play, he's the best I'd ever seen. And then my last one, Vialli, ended a career at Chelsea, but never the quickest. But I think he was the cleverest striker there was. The best movement I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's got the best movement I've seen in a centre forward.
Really?
Yeah, up there with whoever you want. I mean, his movement was scary. Never stood still, always moving, always getting defenders thinking. I mean,
but then he used to say when we used to do sprints, he'd say, "I'll lose on sprint number 1." But then by the end of the training session, like not the training session, we'd be doing like runs and sprints, and he'd say, "But come 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I bet I'm beating the rest of the ones that were winning early." And he said, "That's because I need to run a defender that way." He'd work them off the ball. But he's, like you said, always on the move, either on the shoulder, coming feet. His movement, I said, he was outstanding. He'd create a gap for you to play him in any time. And then his finishing, right, left foot, power, class.
Who's your skipper?
there's a lot of captains in that team, isn't there?
Ooh. Yeah.
Not telling you.
No. Hey, 11 captains there, Jody.
Yeah.
11 captains.
Yeah.
What a team.
Brilliant. Well done, mate. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Superb.